Okay, in the previous video, we talked about the fact that there are two general types of ethical systems, or at least there have been always in the past. There are those that focused on personal righteousness, personal improvement, however you may want to define that. And there have been those that focus on interpersonal relationships. Right? If that is so, where do we go from there? Now, if we're going to limit our ethical focus to interpersonal relationships, and I think in a naturalist philosophy we have to do that, we should consider the nature of those relationships. Here again, we can break down relationships into generally one of two sorts, general and special. Now, what do I mean by these? General relationships are those that we have simply by virtue of being the same species on the same planet. Two people just running into each other, like sharing a subway car or standing in the same line at a store or a fast food restaurant. We don't know each other. We don't need to get to know each other. And it doesn't matter if we ever meet again. There's no ethical obligation for me to strike up a friendship with a person who simply happens to be standing in the same line at a McDonald's that I am. I can't imagine anyone trying to make an ethical claim that every single person I happen to come across, whom I happen to see, I have to establish some kind of deep interpersonal bond with that person. Not realistic, doesn't make any sense. On the other hand, there are special relationships, and these are the ones in which two or more people have entered into a deliberate relationship. We have examples of this: friend to friend, employer to employee, merchant to customer, doctor to patient, attorney to client, husband to wife. Now, all these relationships don't have to be permanent. Some are, some are not. And there are going to be different degrees of closeness, different degrees of interaction depending upon the type of relationship. I may have and had a relationship, albeit very short-lived, with the man who repaired my roof after the last storm we had here. I can assure you I never want to see this man again. Now, why? He was pleasant, very pleasant, nice person. His prices were better than anybody else. I hired him and he did a good job. I have absolutely no complaints about him in any other way, but I don't ever want to see him again. Now, why? Because if I do, it means that I had another storm, there was more damage to my roof, and it's going to cost me some more money. A little aside here, I have to give credit to that example to Harvey Cox. He wrote a book called The Secular City back in the 1960s. Very insightful book. He's talking about relationships in urban communities. He used an example of his TV and his TV repairman, but the principle's still the same thing. Now, in these kind of special relationships, there will be affirmative ethical obligations, at least if we want to preserve those relationships. If I want Joe to be my friend, I have to act in a friendly way. I have to fulfill the character of being a friend, as Epictetus would have said. I can't go around insulting him to his face or behind his back. I can't disparage him. I can't ignore him. If I do, he won't be my friend for very long. So the fact that I want to continue that relationship means there will be obligations. This applies to short-lived relationships. If I'm a merchant, I have to provide my customer with either a product or a service at a price and level of customer service that will attract his business, make him want to come to me. And if he wants for me to continue to provide him those goods and services, he'll have to be willing and able to pay for them. So there are some mutual obligations. Again, short-lived, again, limited, but still very real. Now, can we say there are any ethical obligations in general relationships? Well, if we follow the lead of some of the classical ethical systems, I think we would have to argue that the only requirements that can be considered obligatory are negative ones. Do no harm. Look at the famous Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery. This was a social thing, all right? The things you don't do. The famous Egyptian confession. I didn't do this, I didn't do that. Affirmative obligations, like the famous Golden Rule, presume an authority that either doesn't exist or no one's ever been able to show it exists. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Rhetorically sounds nice, but try to look at it and you say, what obligation here? Now compare that with the Confucian Silver Rule, as it's sometimes called. He said, what is harmful to you, do not do to another. Don't assault, don't steal, don't defraud, don't be rude. Why? They preserve the social harmony. They preserve the social relationships. All right? They're negative. There are no affirmative ethical obligations in that formulation. Now, as you'll see in the next video, I think there is one exception we can make here. One way in which we can get beyond social ethics. If you wish, say, to embrace the Stoic lifestyle, that choice can and will entail some ethical considerations. But we'll get to that in the next video.